And then I think finally, I had open heart surgery. I had open heart surgery in 2007.
I did not
To
know that.
yeah, most people don't. To repair an aortic aneurysm, and the aneurysm was sitting right on top of my aortic valve, and so I went up to Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota,
Well,
to get this resolved.
this podcast is sponsored by Engineered Tax Services, a subsidiary of Engineered Advisory, whose goal is to support CPAs and their clients to achieve the highest and best use of time and resources. ETS offers specialty tax services and incentives, which help expand your capabilities and ensure that your clients are paying only what is required in taxes and nothing more. To learn more about Engineered Tax Services, go to engineeredtaxservices.com and mention the Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise podcast to receive project discounts and a free CPA partnership ebook. Hi, everyone. This is Heidi Henderson, and you are listening to the Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise podcast for accountants. I am really passionate about people and the industry. And I truly believe that the accounting industry can do better for both our clients and its professionals. So I'm going to share insights from people who have found professional success and who have managed to balance that with their physical, mental, and personal health. So I hope you enjoy, and I hope you get inspired. Accountants can earn free CPE from listening to this episode. Just visit earmarkcpe.com, download the app, take a short quiz, and get your CPE certificate. And now, on to the episode. Hi, everyone. Today's guest is Philip Wentworth with Rockerbox, and I am so excited to have him with us today because I've been working with Philip for the last couple of years, and he is doing some really great things. Philip, our audience here, kind of the goal with this podcast is to not only talk about technical things and how those would apply to our accounting and CPA audience, but really talking about like the life behind it, your success, like how did you get here? How did all this kind of build out your background, your story? And then you and I talked a little bit about generally, how do we balance the workload, especially with what you're doing and having come out of COVID? You're in a special situation, obviously. So I think we have a ton to talk about. I'm super excited for our audience to be able to get to know you a little bit better. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Heidi. Pleasure to be here. Cannot wait.
Perfect. Okay. So as a first intro, how about you tell us a little bit about your background, how you're with Rockerbox. Really, right now, you're doing tons of employee retention credits, which we work together on, work opportunity tax credits. How did you land in this space?
Such an interesting question. And I wish I had a one or two word or phrase, answer, but I'm a entrepreneur at heart, been in technology startups for probably 25 years. And about almost 10 years ago, I got a call from a headhunter that was representing an opportunity with a tax credit provider. And this provider was started by some former Big Four, Big Five alumni. And I joined really to help out with marketing and sales. And from the onset, we found ways to leverage technology to bring tax credit programs to a mass audience. And I kind of split away from that organization about 2 years and started Rockerbox with some friends and colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
And our goal really was to leverage technology even more to help bring these little known tax credit programs to every small business owner in America. And so the way in which we leverage technology allows us to go downstream to the pizzeria on the corner that's hiring 10 kids a year,
Mm-hmm.
or all the way up to one of the largest staffing firms in the world that's hiring about 35,000 people a year.
Wow.
And so it really is this whole idea of getting into the provisions, understanding the programs from a 360 view, but then applying stupid, simple, automated, and innovative technology solutions to those provisions, so that virtually any business in the United States can now leverage and have access to these programs.
Wow. Wow, it's an interesting background. Well, I was chatting with a client today who was referred by their CPA, and their CPA had said, "Hey, chat with Heidi about some employee retention credits and some of these other things. They happen to qualify for research and development credits as well." And the very first thing this guy asked me is he goes, "But why isn't my CPA doing that? Why did he tell me to call you?" And right? I mean, it's like this question we get a lot, and I said, "Hey, it's a really meaningful and justifiable question."
Yeah.
And ultimately, as specialists, some of these things are so technical, and that's exactly the case with the employee retention credit as well, and
Yes.
why we're seeing so many of these firms kind of pop up first because the opportunity is huge, obviously, but because of the technical side behind it. So it's interesting you've been able to really dive into that and build that system because I think that's what the CPAs haven't been able to do is spend the time to build the system, especially in the midst of tax season, in the midst of
Yep.
PPP loans and everything else with tax season and the chaos we've had over the last few years. It's just one more thing that we just don't have time to manage. So
Yeah.
how have you helped from a I guess growth standpoint on your end working with CPA firms? Has that been a target of yours? And how has that kind of helped to build that relationship with them?
Absolutely. I love telling this story about ERTC. Heidi, you've heard it before, but Rockerbox really made a name for itself in WotC. And so we have technology systems built around that are proprietary. It's our code. And we're really quite proud of what we've been able to accomplish. Well, a lot of our WotC clients came to us in April of 2020 after the CARES Act was passed and wanted help with ERTC. And quite frankly, we wanted no part of it. ERTC was new. It's over 900 pages of provisions. It's
Yep.
highly nuanced. It's unprecedented in nature from the fact that it's a fully refundable tax credit. And there's just so many moving pieces. I mean, it's highly nuanced. It's incredibly complicated,
Mhm.
and the risk, is pretty high. It still is today because you're filing on behalf of the employer with the IRS.
Yep.
And so we had clients kind of push and nudge us, and we finally decided to get into the space simply because our clients came back to us with overtures from other providers. And we were horrified with what we saw, the guarantees and the promises, and they really weren't, in our mind, in our opinion, looking into the nuances and acting on the best interest of the client. So we jumped in, and now we have a fully functioning ERTC practice area. At any one given time, we've got between 45 and 60 clients that are in the queue. And I say all that, at Rockerbox, we don't have a direct sales team. We rely on partners like CPAs to make introductions to their clients. And let's not forget the role of the CPA. We love our CPA, Sean Deaver, shout out in Boston. We couldn't do our job without Sean, but
Mhm.
Sean's role in Rockerbox is really to help us with financial reporting and making sure that we are compliant in regards to taxes. And he does take on a very special role with us as a trusted advisor. But Sean only has so many hours in the day.
Right.
And I would never expect Sean to come to us and execute this type of program simply because that's not his role on our team. And for him to become an expert in this area, he would have to drop everything for
Mm.
probably 3 to 6 months to get his hands fully around the provisions
Yeah.
and all the different nuances. And so, we have looked to the CPA channel as a trusted advisor, and we are trying to extend their value by bringing this value, this specialty value to their clients. And
Mhm.
I think it's worked very well. I mean, we've submitted thousands of 941Xs to the IRS, and 98% of those have come from the CPA channel. And we've built processes around that, not a whole lot of technology,
Mhm.
but a lot of processes around that to make it so simple for a CPA firm to make the introduction, send us the documents that are required to prove employer eligibility, and also calculate the credit. We think we've made this really simple for the CPA firm to engage with Rockerbox and extend their specialty practices to all of their clients.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna play devil's advocate.
Sure.
So there's all of these providers now. that seem like they're kind of coming out of the woodwork.
Yep.
And I have friends, I have colleagues, I have clients, I have CPAs that I work with who say, "Oh, I've been called by this person, I've been reached out by this person." And, some of my CPA contacts are calling to say, "Look, I'm being told this, but I'm not comfortable with that. What is your thought?" And, they know that they can bounce those ideas off of us. I appreciate that they have that trust in us to, we're here for the long haul. We've been in business for 22 years, so we're not going anywhere.
Right.
One of the comments that I'm hearing from these firms is, "Well, it's fine. We're going to support you in audit. And we've never been audited. So you're safe." Now, I don't know that anybody has been audited for an ERC credit yet because it's too new. And secondarily, to be perfectly honest, I had a conversation with a gentleman who I asked him, I said, "So what are you going to do? You're doing ERC right now. What are you going to do when ERC is gone?" And he told me, "I'm going to take my money and go lay on the beach. I'm done."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to be perfectly, I mean, that was a little terrifying to me. And I
Yeah.
said, I think that's what clients and CPAs, well, CPAs typically are very cautious with making referrals, rightfully so, because their clients are pushed or pursued by a lot of these firms. But how do we know that they're gonna be around in a year or 2 years? They say that they're
Right.
gonna support it under audit. They say that, they've crossed the T's and dotted the I's, and those are the risks that we're seeing because of this thing, which is this is the new shiny penny right now. And, how long is it gonna be around? We know we've got it's 3 years from the end of 2021 to refile, right? It's 3 years from the time the 941 was filed, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
From the time in which the credit was earned. Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So we have a couple years where this is still going to be around, and then this is going to close up. So with that said, what's your long term plan? Just for listeners, because I think it's
Yeah.
important to really look at it and say, look, we as providers need to make sure that we're looking out for our clients' best interests and that we're being cautious, but still looking for opportunity. It's like where's that balance?
There's a fine line. Yeah.
Yeah.
We there's so many different places to start this conversation, but we do. The main reason we got into this business idea is we saw what I would term kind of generic entrepreneurs
Hmm.
coming into the space and making claims and promises that we felt were incredibly aggressive. And when you look at ERTC, it is unprecedented in nature because it is a fully refundable tax credit.
Hmm.
We probably will not see another program like this in our lifetime. At least I hope we don't, right? Because if we don't see it, then the economy is stable and we don't need it. In the course of trying to get updates for our clients, some of our larger clients, we've been on the phone with the IRS, I'll call it 35, 40 times in the last 18 months. And we have asked them, "Hey, what are you seeing? Can you look at our documentation and let us know if we're doing this the right way?" And we have been pleasantly not surprised, but we have to hear the feedback that we are doing things the right way. We have on occasion asked, "Mr. or Mrs. Agent, we haven't seen penalties being published by the IRS in regards to this program. Can you shed some light on that?" Because typically the IRS will come out with provisions or updates, and then what is a normal occurrence is to have them publish kind of some ideas around penalties if there are inaccuracies or fraud,
Right.
and
Yeah.
we just haven't seen that. And
Hmm.
and the IRS is telling us that because the program is unprecedented, that the penalties would be unprecedented as well.
Hmm.
And I guess my comment to anybody listening, we are going to be here tomorrow. Every one of our clients gets what we call an audit ready binder at the end of the project. Now, it's not a tax opinion, but it's an electronic binder that is delivered to every client via email. It's a PDF. And within that PDF, we talk specifically about the employer's eligibility, why we believe they are eligible for the program, number one, and number
Hmm.
two, the quarters in which they are eligible, and we're very specific. We then provide every piece of documentation to help prove that that employer is eligible for those quarters. After that, we then discuss the methodology in which we use to calculate the credit, taking into consideration other programs, whether it's an EIDL or a PPP loan, or to your point, research and development, if there's any wages allocated towards other credit programs like WOTC.
Hmm.
And so we're boxing out and not double dipping and we're discussing in very great detail how we arrived at the credit calculation. And then we do have the supporting 941Xs, the actual documents we send in to the IRS on our client's behalf. We're going to keep that binder on our servers for up to 5 years. We have been
Mhm.
told by the IRS that that is the audit window for ERTC.
Okay.
So we'll keep that on our servers for 5 years, and we hope that the client does as well. We did have a client here in Texas. It was a furniture refurb business that got audited by the state for some sales tax usage items. And when the auditors were in their office, they did ask to see, hey, what documentation do you have for this? We're
Hmm.
not here for this, but we just kind of want to look over your shoulder and see what kind of documentation you have. And they provided the binder,
Hmm.
and that was it. The auditors packed up their stuff and left. Now, to be
Nice.
clear, they weren't there to scrutinize our binder, but we feel pretty confident that the binder, if a third party does come knocking on one of our clients' doors, the binder is going to help that auditor get probably 90 to 95% down the runway.
Right.
And we will jump in virtually, and we will make ourselves available to answer questions from any third party for any of our clients. But I love your point earlier. ETS has been in business for 20, 21, 22 years. We've been at this for close to a decade now.
Hmm.
I got my start in tax credits in 2015.
Hmm.
And so we have no plans of packing up, of going anywhere, once. And we know, to be clear, to your point, Heidi, ERTC is sunsetting. It's not going to be around. It's not going to be a permanent program. At least that's what we're led to believe today.
Hmm.
And so we know ERTC is going to sunset, and we will roll over our ERTC practice area personnel into other programs like WOTC or FICA tip credit or empowerment zones,
Yeah.
or even state funded grant programs. And so we're not going anywhere. We don't want to go anywhere. Our mission is to get out in front of these tax credit programs and some of the state funded grant programs. And just we feel like we're a steward of the IRS. Our goal is to get these programs into the hands of every small business owner in America. If you look at the Amazons of the world, if you look at the Walmarts of the world, they've got tax departments that are employed with tens, if not hundreds, of staff members. And they've
Right.
got the resources and the bandwidth to look into these programs, to execute these programs, to manage these programs. And the average small business owner, I'll pick on the pizzeria at the corner. They don't have the wherewithal or the resources to investigate, execute, and manage these programs. And that's where Rockerbox comes in.
Yeah.
So we don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. We'll be here to pick up the phone if something should happen.
That's always good. I think that's comforting. And, and as a partner with, with accountants, that's one of the big things. I think it's so important for our industry and for the accounting industry to understand the pitfalls, to understand the
Yes.
strengths and have strong resources that are available because it's always a little bit difficult when someone reaches out or client reaches out and says, "Hey, I've been contacted by
Right.
Joe Blow who's asking me to do this or telling me I should qualify for this, but why didn't you tell me about it? Or, why have I missed this to this point?" And so I think that's one of the big things. And going back to this podcast in general is how do we help the industry as a whole be more proactive and
I love it.
understand where to look at these opportunities and have enough, it's like we're always putting those arrows in the quiver, right? To increase knowledge. We don't have to be experts in everything, but just knowing enough to be dangerous.
Yeah.
So I have other questions in terms of where you're going, because I know that Rockerbox is building other resources before we go there and before
Yeah.
I dig more into you personally, which will be fun. Um, my last question is, tell me a couple scenarios where you are seeing, I don't know, it might be too aggressive to call it blatant fraud, but where you're seeing people pursue the credit in very, very gray areas.
It's in almost every industry, and it's painful to watch. It really does turn my stomach because
Mhm.
if you go back to some of our conversations with IRS agents,
Mhm.
the penalties are going to be unprecedented. I think
Yeah.
they're going to go after individual, not the company or the provider.
Hmm.
but actual individuals and or their professional licenses. We've heard from IRS agents that there could be a 5x penalty. So if
Mm.
you took a dollar from the treasury and you didn't deserve it, you might owe $5 plus penalties and interest.
Wow.
And so it's just this is just something that has so much risk, and some of the aggressive behaviors we've seen. I'll pick on a mortgage company that didn't have a good decline in gross receipts.
Okay.
They weren't restricted.
Hmm.
Um, and this company just came in and said, we get all that, but our view of the world is you could have made more money. And if
Ooh.
COVID wasn't there restricting your business, you could have made maybe 2 times more, 3 times more after they've had record years in 2020 and
Wow.
2021 because of where interest rates were.
Mm.
And so the credit coming out of this vendor was close to $2 million. And you just sit there and go, I cannot rationally, with what I know about these provisions, hang this employer's eligibility together.
Wow.
I mean, it would be chicken wire and chewing gum at best. And if a third party came and looked over my shoulder,
Hmm.
and with the amount of money that this mortgage company thought they had access to, I just don't know how you defend it.
Yeah.
If you're reading the provisions the way in which I think they were written for interpretation.
Well,
And so
right.
that's
I
just
mean,
one example.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, the calculation itself is complicated, and to your point, looking at PPP loans, how those then integrate into our costs, and how we're tying all this together, and R&D credits, and kind of doing all of these complex calculations and reconciliations. There's a lot there, but the code itself is relatively clear in
it
that
is.
we're looking at reduced revenues in a direct comparison, and we're looking for mandatory shutdowns or restrictions. So another one that I've seen a lot about is looking like 3 steps down, saying there were supply chain issues. I wasn't shut down, but my suppliers 2 chains below me were shut down. So technically, so how have you handled that scenario? Because that's one that I've been contacted by CPAs who have asked me, look, this is what's being brought to me. I'm uncomfortable with it, and we need an opinion. And that's kind of where we dive into
Yeah,
that. So, what are you seeing?
it's tough, Heidi. That's one of the most challenging cases that we've come across in the last two
Yeah.
and a half years. Supply chain issues are really difficult.
Hmm.
And I would say to any CPA or client employer out there that's listening can hear my voice is find a provider that's willing to tell you no. I mean, you've been on calls with me. We spend so much
Yep.
time on the discovery call asking the employer questions about their eligibility and really getting into their fact patterns around eligibility. And we have ended calls and thanked people for their time and just said, you're not a good candidate for this because you don't qualify based on our interpretation of the provisions.
Yep.
And so that's my first thing. We love telling people no. I mean, we're here to make money like anybody, and we want to help as many small business owners as we can. That's our goal. But if they don't qualify, they don't qualify. It's too much
Right.
risk for the employer. It's too much risk for our company and our brand to move
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
But
Well.
to your point, supply chain, Heidi, it is just so hard to string that together.
Hmm.
I'm not saying that we haven't had a couple cases. We have, but a majority of the supply chain, we have just told no to them because it is so hard to prove.
Yeah.
I mean, our test at Rockerbox is if we can't physically grab the restriction, if it's not on a government website, the governor's website, a county health department,
Hmm.
if we can't physically grab the restriction and prove that that was a restriction that encumbered or injured your business from conducting business as usual,
Yeah.
we're just not going to move forward. I mean, saying that
Yeah.
you had supply chain issues and proving it are two different things.
Yeah.
And
Well,
many times we just can't get the employer to provide us with enough tangible, credible proof that the supply chain impacted their business.
yeah.
Such a great scenario. We
Yep.
see it every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I absolutely respect your position in that too, because yes, we've had those calls. We've really, you know, it's the consensus with our firm as well that we do everything to not leave a stone unturned. We certainly do
Yeah.
not want to leave a dollar on the table that is eligible and that is supported. So we appreciate and respect your opinion on that as well. So and
Thank you.
your stance on really doing everything to follow the letter of the law. So with that, and kind of back to the whole, longevity of business in general, I know you're building other systems. Tell me a little bit about some of those other things. Now, you're also doing work opportunity tax credits, right?
Correct. Yes. I love talking about kind of our technology roadmap.
Mm-hmm.
We've been in this space, like I said, for almost a decade, and we want to give stupid, simple, automated, innovative tools to every small business owner. And we've noticed this, over the last, close to a decade that many small businesses just don't have those technology tools today. So in our roadmap, we do have what we call the WOTC optimization system fully functional today.
Mm-hmm.
We're a little bit different in the fact that we take the 8850, the questionnaire for screening for WOTC eligibility. We don't use that in our WOTC optimization system. Instead, we kind of use some gamification and icons to make it a little bit simpler and easier for the employee to complete our screening questionnaire.
Okay.
And so we're a little bit different in that regard. And so that is fully functional today. We're going live with our payroll system on November 1st.
Nice.
When we have access, yeah, we're so excited about it, Heidi. When we have access to payroll data, the execution of these tax credit programs, specifically WOTC and ERTC, it becomes a lot more efficient and cost effective for our team.
Mm-hmm.
So payroll will come out November 1st. And then soon after that, in Q1 of 2023, we are going to go live with a simple ATS. We call it a simple applicant tracking system,
Hmm.
and then a new hire onboarding system. So we wanted to create this for our restaurant clients. Some of these restaurant owners have 3, 4, 5, even 8 locations. And each of the managers at each location is hiring people almost on a weekly basis. And there's no compliance effort. Typically, there's no continuity as it relates to job descriptions or even pay rates. And everything is paper. And so we want to give these tools to the small business owners so they can post job descriptions through one system. They
Okay.
can then take on applicants and we can screen them for tax credit programs almost immediately.
Hmm.
But everything is going to be housed in one system, even the payroll data.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got things that are churning in the background that no one even notices, constantly updating files and constantly looking for tax credits. So
Wow.
we're pretty excited with our technology vision.
Yeah, that's exciting. Well,
Yeah,
congratulations on the growth and
thank
continuing
you.
to be proactive and moving towards that. And to that note, kind of transitioning then, one of the reasons that I wanted to do this podcast is because I am really, believe it or not, I'm very passionate about the accounting world. And I started in accounting. And one of the things that I see is you've got this industry that has a tremendous demand on time and
Yes,
energy, particularly during tax season. And I see it take a toll on people physically
yes,
to such an extreme extent that it's a little scary and alarming. And I see the people that I work with, and I saw it in myself before kind of moving into consulting and realizing that, it's so important to try to find balance and, or harmony in that in our lives. And it's easier said than done, especially like I was saying, coming through COVID. I mean, every tax season is hard, but you talk with CPAs today, you talk with anyone really in any business, we have staffing issues. We don't have enough help. We've got too much work to go around. We've got firms that are firing clients, because they
yeah,
can't, they're not taking on any new clients. They're making decisions based on the fact that there's just not enough time in a day. And that takes such a toll on all of us emotionally, physically, mentally, all of these different ways. And ERTC clearly is something that this came on board. It was really quick. There was a
yep,
frenzy. It's been a complete chaotic experience for the last couple of years, as we've seen also in the accounting space with the changes. And so, with that being said, You just got married recently.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So happy for you. And so
Thank you.
in the middle of all of this, you are handling and doing a phenomenal job at working through this employee retention credit and building your company, working with clients. You are getting married and also looking to the future, building your firm. How have you managed all of this and managed all of that in a sense of trying to keep balance? And I
Well,
know
let's,
it's a
yeah.
funny question, isn't it?
No, it's a great question. Let's patch in my wife. She's
Yeah.
amazing. She makes this world work for me and certainly Rockerbox. So hats off to Stephanie. She's been
Oh.
amazing throughout this. I appreciate the compliment and the question, Heidi. Our mission is to get these programs out to as many small business owners as possible.
Mhm,
We think we're stewards of the IRS, and that's our goal, right? We
mhm,
got into ERTC because we want to help people,
mhm,
and we're honest here at Rockerbox. I'd give myself. We spend so much time hiding on the work product
mhm.
that we probably have not done an adequate job of shoring up, how we communicate and how we report back to some of our partners, and we admit, we see that,
Mhm.
and so I don't think that we've done a perfect job. Now we've spent so much time worrying about the work product and being compliant and wanting to be accurate for our clients because the risk is so high, but at the detriment, I think, of some of these other operational issues. One of the things that we found with ERTC is it's so hard to forecast against.
Mhm.
We don't know what the next week or the next day, as far as client acquisition, just the sheer volume. We don't know how to forecast against that. And so it's been really challenging to try to scale and build technology and infrastructure around a practice area that has virtually no forecasting ability.
Yeah.
It's tested me as an owner. It's tested me as an entrepreneur, as a
Mhm,
husband.
mhm.
And it's been incredibly frustrating and challenging. But I will say that the upside is we're helping thousands of small business owners. And so I think, the pain and the discomfort and the frustration that we've experienced as a team has been well worth it.
Yeah.
How am I managing this
Right.
personally?
Yeah.
Um, a lot of long walks in the
Mhm.
afternoon, a lot of swimming laps in the pool,
Nice.
a lot of day trips with my wife just to kind of unhook and kind of recharge.
Mhm.
And I would be remiss. We have a bunch of ninjas on our team. I'm just amazed at what our team is able to accomplish on an hour by hour, day by day basis. It
Mhm,
has truly been a Herculean effort.
mhm.
And it's not just a sprint. Like, we're not doing this just for a couple days or a couple weeks. They've been at this pace for 18 months.
Yeah.
And hats off to them. So that's how I think Rockerbox and certainly myself are managing this. But I
Yeah.
think it all starts at home with having a tremendous amount of support
Yep.
through my wife and my family.
Well, always. I mean, our support systems are so huge. So I'm interested in diving a little deeper into your walks and your swimming
Yeah.
because that's one thing. I think the number one thing that goes by the wayside when we are stressed and overloaded and overworked is getting in some exercise.
Yep.
And um, it's hard because it's time consuming and it feels like it almost feels like a benefit, like something we get to do when we have time.
Right.
But yet when we don't, I know for myself, I am not the same person mentally or
Yep.
physically if I don't take the time. So is that something that you have always committed to? Is that what's kind of your what stemmed that in your life to take time to do some physical activity?
Yeah. Yeah. I've always been a little bit of an athlete. Some people can, come back at me and maybe be a little bit combative on that statement, but
I
I would
know. We
always
don't all
look at
have to be
myself.
professionals.
Right, right. There I was a collegiate athlete, and so
Got it.
I've always been in the weight room or in the water or, doing something
Mm,
athletic, whether it was triathlons or whatever. And honestly, when the pandemic hit and we started Rockerbox, there was a tremendous amount of guilt felt when I would take time for myself,
mm,
whether it was a workout or whether it was, a long weekend with my wife. because I felt like I was abandoning my clients and my team here at Rockerbox.
Yeah.
And how silly is that, right? And so I started to put a bigger emphasis on working out probably at the beginning of this year, and I think it's taken me that long to kind of get into a rhythm.
Hmm.
And now when I don't swim 3 times a week and I don't walk 3 times a week, to your point, Heidi, I just feel like a different person,
Mm,
to the point where when I come back from those walks or swimming sessions, my wife notices a completely different person walking back into the house. And so
yes.
it's the the benefits that I have received from staying focused on my working out, has made me, I think, a better husband, made me a better boss. I'm sleeping better, I'm eating better, and, I think I'm a better, more well-rounded Philip.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's huge because I think you hit the nail on the head when you say that you almost feel guilty because in
Mhm.
a sense, I mean, sometimes we hate working out, right? But then there's some things that if we don't think of a hike as a workout or a walk or a bike ride, we almost look at that as recreation. And so then it does feel like we're taking a break. But it's so fascinating because I know that I tend to feel that way. I think a lot of our professionals tend to feel that guilt in
Yeah.
taking that break or being gone a little too long, even if it's a long lunch break to go for a walk or to do a workout or leaving the office earlier. I had one of my CPA firm friends actually make a comment to me one day. He says, "It took me a long time to realize and remember that I'm not a surgeon, and that tax return is not going to cause someone to die."
Yeah. Yep.
And
Yep.
and I think that's what we have to try to remember as individuals is that one day we don't work out or that week we don't because we need to make sure and get those extra tax returns done or that month can actually lead to things down the line in us personally and physically that can be life threatening in the long run and the tax return won't. And so that's the
Yeah.
the the interesting correlation that I think I hope to just bring some, if nothing else, motivation and inspiration to people. It may not be people's favorite topic to talk about, oh, that's right, I should make time to go work out or do something. But there's that aspect of it that to find that mental space, like you're saying, and I don't know about you, I mean, maybe when you're swimming, I would imagine there's not a whole lot going through your mind because you can't be distracted by phone calls and emails and social media.
Right.
You're in the moment. So a lot of times that time also allows you to think about proactive things with your business and how
Right.
you can grow and expand and where you want to go next. So that can also be a huge benefit.
It's therapeutic. It
Yeah.
really is. It's like going and yeah, I'll say this to your audience, I have a mental health professional in my life. I have been seeing him for the better part of 12 years. For anybody out there that's listening, we started after my divorce and started working on me as a person,
Yeah.
individually, and it morphed into kind of a career entrepreneur coach. And for anybody out there, whether you're a CPA, entrepreneur, tax practitioner, I don't care. It, I have told my friends about this for years, and I wish everybody would take me up on the offer to go engage and have a relationship with a counselor. For me, I go now about every 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, and it's almost like taking out the mental trash. And so swimming is very much like that, where to your point, Heidi, I get to relax. I don't think about work necessarily all the time. And I kind of just do this reset. And when I come out of the water, I'm open to getting myself out of the business. I'm typically working in the business so that I can
Mhm.
then start thinking about the business and more strategic initiatives. But I didn't want to pass over this very important topic and not mention my relationship with my therapist. I don't think I would have the perspective and I don't think I would be where I am today, personally or professionally, without
Mhm.
having that type of person in my life. It has been probably one of the most valuable relationships outside of my wife, personally and professionally, that I've ever had in my life. And for what it's worth, going back to your comment about motivating and maybe even inspiring someone to take the next step in their life, hopefully
Mhm.
that triggers maybe some action with one of your listeners.
Yeah. You know what? That's amazing because especially for a man
Yep.
say, "Look, I have a counselor that I go to and I work through it." Like you honestly, I maybe have heard one male in my lifetime ever open up and talk about something like that. So that's amazing. I think it is inspiring. I mean, I'm
Well, thanks.
touched by that personally, so thank you for sharing that.
You bet.
I
Thank you for that, Heidi.
I think it's really important. I know I'm a point in my life as well. I think as we get older and our kids are grown and we start looking at the future, wanting to make a difference in the world as well.
Well,
And so
I I can't agree more. Just one other comment. At Rockerbox, we have an advisory board, and I don't have all the answers as it relates to the mission and vision of Rockerbox or the day-to-day answers. I don't. I'm not that smart, and I don't have that much experience. But that's what our advisors do.
yeah.
Any sort of obstacle or issue that we have at Rockerbox, if we can't come to a consensus internally, or we can't find the answer as a partnership group, we've got these 12 people as resources that we can tap into at the drop of a hat.
Mhm.
And I look at my therapist almost the same way. Like I mean, I
Yep.
didn't come with an instruction manual. My parents just didn't give me one and say, well, this is your personality. This is how you need to solve problems. These are the decisions you need to make.
Yep.
And so my therapist, has enabled me to become a better human,
Wow.
and I get to talk through issues because I don't have a personal advisory board. I've got a therapist. And so
Wow.
if that helps someone kind of assimilate, the relationship I have with the therapist,
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense. But
Yeah.
very much in the same areas as our advisory board. My therapist is very much my personal advisor.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's really insightful and interesting, because I know with a lot of firms as well, there's always that interesting dynamic between partners, which are like
Yes.
spouses a lot of times, good and bad, and never easy. And so having a resource in whichever form, I think is huge. It's incredible you found that. So last question for you, and I'm going to kind of blend two questions.
Okay.
Um, one is, what is a really pivotal tell me about a really pivotal moment in your life, but I wanna blend that with what do you really attribute to your success? Because
Mm.
I feel like those can almost go hand in hand if we look at what really shifted something for us in our life that really has then led to our success. I think success ultimately is because we've something sort of flipped a switch in us and we decided to do something brave. So is there a moment in your life or something or someone in your life you feel like that was that trigger for you?
Yeah. I would just say, going back to me being a former athlete, coaches.
Mm,
I've been on some really good teams and I've been on some really bad teams. And
mm,
I think with the really good teams, I was on a basketball team. It was a rec team.
mm,
This is before AAU and all that fun stuff, but we were really good. We didn't lose a game, I think, in like 6 years, maybe 7 years. And the coach just gave us a process for winning,
hmm.
gave us a process for life, and gave us a process for confidence. And so coming out of that situation, having worked and earned that type of success with a defined process gave us all, I mean, I can speak for myself, I think my teammates, just a template for life. Like it doesn't matter what life throws at you in college or, your early professional years. You've got a process, you've got a template to endure and succeed.
Wow.
And I'm so blessed that it happened, in my preteens and teen years that helped me, take those tools on early adulthood and into my early professional years. And then I think after that, after kind of applying that and doing some testing and fails and successes, getting funding at such a young age. When I started my first company, I think I was 23 or 24 years old. Having a VC come in and kind of overlook our shoulders and say, "Gosh, this is a great idea. We want to apply capital to this," was another kind of shot in the arm and kind
Yeah.
of crystallized, if you will, and confirmed that, hey, this process I learned so long ago still works today, and it's paying dividends for me in early adulthood.
Hmm.
And then I think finally, I had open heart surgery. I had open heart surgery in 2007.
I did not
Two,
know that.
Yeah, yeah, most people don't. To repair an aortic aneurysm, and the aneurysm was sitting right on top of my aortic, valve, and so I went up to Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota
Wow.
to get this, resolved, and I went to Mayo because they had the surgeons on staff to kind of assist with any sort of scenario that might happen once they open me up, and so, coming out of that and still being able to compete in triathlons and still try to be kind of a weekend warrior. I think also just said, again, going back to that process is okay, you've got a process, you've got a template, no matter what life throws at you, we know that this template can be leveraged. And there's nothing that God's gonna give you that is bigger than you or bigger than what you can resolve on your own or with a very good and healthy support system.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's an incredible message. Like I had no idea, and it just makes it even that more, I think, inspiring knowing that you're, committing to continue to move and continuing to live life and be successful. So that is so amazing. I'm so grateful that you've shared all of this and super
Thank you.
excited. I'm motivated. I hope my listeners are, but I am. Um,
That's a first. I'm glad I helped one person.
no, no, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining me. And for anyone listening, Rockerbox does have a program. So if you contact Philip, we'll share his contact information. Let him know that you heard him on the Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise podcast for accountants, and he'll give you a discount. So
Awesome.
we'll talk about that. So
Heidi, thank you
again,
so much for the platform. I really appreciate it. This was so much fun. Thank you.
okay, absolutely. Thank you so much again. I appreciate you joining, and we'll talk to you soon.